Okay, so welcome back. Welcome to the Lenormand Grandtableau Masterclass, Part 2. So a really important part of reading what's called a method of distance grand tableau is the near and far rules. And I'm going to use the beautiful Silbernacht Lenormand or Lenormand and go through these quickly before we look at this reading. So we're going to go in depth looking at this example reading from last year. This is a real reading for a real person, so just to give you an idea of how a proper grand tableau is read and how it demonstrates exactly what has happened, what is happening, and will give you an indication of what will happen in the person's life, in the seeker's life. Okay, so as I said before, if you've not already done so, please consider subscribing. It would really help me out big time. And if you're enjoying these videos, do hit the like button on all of them, obviously. Why wouldn't you? And if you want to drop me a message below, you can let me know any questions that you have, anything that you like, that you dislike, and if you want to arrange to have a reading or a lesson, you can contact me through the website. There's a link below and above. Okay, so let's get into this. We've got quite a lot to go through in this part 2 of this masterclass. So the rider. Now, why do we have near and far rules? Well, because it adds an extra layer of information. So this is our seeker, all right? In this case, I've made the seeker player 2 in the house of the star. So as we're going through these, like I said, I'm going to use the Silbernacht Lenormand to demonstrate or to read through the near and far rules. Bear in mind, as you're looking, look to see where each card is in relation to this card, and think of that again, like I've said previously, you can think about these as being a sort of a volume switch in a recording studio. Imagine that I have a whole series of dials, I suppose, levers, I guess, moving up and down for the intensity of each instrument. So you can think about this as adjusting the loudness or the quietness in terms of the influence. So number 1, the rider is a messenger of good fortune. If not surrounded by unlucky cards, brings good news which the person may expect either from their own house near, or from abroad, or of a professional nature far. This will, however, not take place immediately, but sometime later if far. All right, so and oftentimes it would be delayed. If you've got a mountain or a tree near to it, the mountain or the tree, they'll hold things back. Even the anchor as well could delay the news. Number 2, the clover is also a harbinger of good news, but if surrounded by clouds, it indicates great pain. But if number 2 lies near number 28 or 29, the pain will be of short duration and soon change to a happy issue. If the clover is far, it can indicate a lack of positive opportunities, misfortune, or just that the person is feeling pessimistic. Number 3, the ship is a symbol of commerce. It signifies great wealth, which will be acquired by trade or inheritance. If near to the person, it means an early journey. If the fish is near to the ship, they may expect some extra money. Okay. Number 4, the house is a certain sign of success and prosperity in all undertakings, and though the present position of the person may be disagreeable, the future will be bright and happy. If this card lies in the center column, especially under the person, this is a hint to be aware of those who surround them, or there's trouble at home. Okay. Number 5, the tree. If distance from the person signifies good health, more trees of different cards together leave no doubt about the realization of all reasonable wishes. Okay, these are very sort of traditional rules. Bear in mind this divination system dates back to probably about 1790. But it kind of helps if you can get into this very simplistic, conservative kind of mindset. It sounds weird, I know, that I'm saying that using a queer deck, the queer Lenormand by the wonderful Marianne Andrade, but it's true. The more that you can think about the time when this is popular, then it gives you more clues as to how to use it and how it works. Okay. Number 6, the clouds. If they're now this, I'm just going to go through this because this is what you'll find in a lot of books. However, I have never used this. I think of it as being the clouds behind the person, trouble in the past, in front, trouble, they're moving into trouble. But what a lot of people will say is, if their clear side is turned towards a person, this is a lucky sign. With the dark side turned towards a person, something disagreeable will soon happen. I don't have any dark and light in my deck, so I look to see if the clouds are to the left in the past, in the present, so in the same row as them, or in the future to the right. I just look for the flow of positive and negative energy. It's easier. The cards that touch the clouds will tell you about the nature of the general trouble the person's dealing with, and if the clouds in this case are touching player one's causing the trouble. All right. Number 7, the serpent or the snake is a sign of misfortune, the extent of which depends upon the greater or smaller distance from the person. It is followed invariably by deceit, infidelity, and sorrow. If right next to the seeker, it suggests that they are deceiving themselves. Number 8, the coffin, very near to the person, means without any doubt dangerous diseases, death, or a total loss of fortune. More distant from the person, the card is less dangerous. So, these rules, these very traditional rules, are extremely dramatic. Now, that very rarely kind of manifests like that, but it is good to just kind of keep them in mind, Number 9, the bouquet, means much happiness in every respect, right? So these are cards that don't really tend to have set near and far meanings as such. For me, the way that the bouquet, like I've said several times, the way the bouquet manifests is it's a birthday. It's a significant birthday, so it's just a date. The scythe indicates great danger, which will only be avoided if lucky cards surround it. The further away, the better. A lot of times, if I see the scythe in the tree in the tower, it's surgery. So it's not necessarily bad, it's that the person's going in for an operation. All right. Okay, number 11, the whip, means quarrels in the family, domestic afflictions, want of peace among married persons, also fever and protracted sickness or kind of repetitive sickness. Number 12, the birds, means hardship to overcome, but of a short duration. A lot of times it indicates pregnancy. If you think about a hardship of 9 months, to give until you give birth, so a lot of times it can indicate pregnancy. A distant from the person, it means the accomplishment of a pleasant journey. So especially with the birds and the ship, an airship would be a plane, but it can indicate a couple as well, of course. Number 13, the child. If it is a sign that the person moves in good society and is full of kindness towards everyone. So especially if it's in a prominent position or near the person, touching the person, the further away it is, it's kind of, you're not quite as innocent as people think, I suppose. Could be a little bit crafty. The fox, if near, is a sign to mistrust persons with whom you're connected, because some of them try to deceive you or trying to deceive you. If distant, no danger is to be apprehended. So I'm trying to read my notes here. Now, this is one of the near and far rules. I don't always use them, to be honest, because if the fox is not close to the person, I will tend to look at the cards that it's touching, and it's more of an event in time, Okay, remember, it's like a calendar. So like it's a calendar that you kind of look at. On one hand, it's days. On the other hand, it's weeks. On the other hand, it's months. On the other hand, it's years. It's everything at once. So all of these columns especially are columns of time for me. Number 15, the bear, is either a message of good fortune or warns us to keep away from company, particularly that of envious people or jealous people. So it can indicate jealousy. Now, this is more getting into the meaning, which I've already covered in previous videos, but it tends to be mama bear for me. So yeah, it's a person usually. The star confirms good luck in all enterprises, but if near the clouds, it means a series of unhappy accidents. Oh God, that's very dramatic. The way that I tend to think about this is the star, the sun, and the moon are the 3 luminaries. You want them high up in the sky, looking down on the seeker. That's usually a good indication, or close through strength in numbers. with linear cards. Okay, the stork indicates a change of abode which will take place the sooner, the nearer the card lies to the person. All right, so now only if it's being touched by the house. A lot of times, the stork for me, the card and the house of the stork, and I've mentioned this in the previous video, it's the bit that is the kind of moving the play headlong in the video. It is the director or the producer of the film, because it's like a film that we're looking at, you know? It's a film of the person's life for a duration of time. The stork moves the action along. That's its main role. So when I look at the stork, I think, ooh, something has happened, something is happening, something will happen. What that something is will be described by the cards surrounding it, but also by following the chain of houses. The heart in the stork in the coffin in the sun in the heart in the stork. That's a mini chain. So that's kind of how I think about that. You can very easily, this is just something that you learn. You know, it's interesting making this video, having spent 5 years studying this and having been at the very early stages where I found it very confusing and oh my God, there's so many rules and regulations and everything else. It's a very traditional system, but you realize that the language that is used in, for example, I can't even remember where I got these near and far rules website or something ages ago, that I did not write them, I have to say. But you realize that the language often comes from very old books or very old kind of instruction manuals, and they don't really, for me, explain how it manifests in real life, which is why I'm trying to make these videos for you guys, you know, hopefully it helps. Hopefully I'm not confusing you even more. Okay, the dog. If near the person, you can consider your friends faithful and sincere, but if very distant, surrounded by clouds, be cautious not to trust those who call themselves your friends. All right, number 19, the tower. The tower gives the hope of a happy old age, but if surrounded by clouds, it forebodes sickness and death. Usually death. It is the clouds and the tower, especially if you're looking behind the seeker, someone has passed away. Usually always for me. The garden. The garden is a card that describes, so I'm actually going to read what is written here. The garden prognosticates that you will visit a very respectable company, if very near, you are to form a very intimate friendship, but if distant, it hints to false friends. So in other words, you want the garden close by because you want your friends close and your enemies closer, as they say. You want the bouquet close by, you want the child close by. They're all the interpersonal cards. The mountain, near the person, warns you against a mighty enemy or an obstacle. If distant, you may rely upon powerful friends. Okay? 22 ways, surrounded by clouds, are signs of disaster, but without this card, not necessarily disaster, without this card, and if distance from the person, you will find ways and means to avoid the threatening danger. You want this card of choices, alternatives, and solutions nearby. The ways card or crossroads card is my way of figuring my way out through the labyrinth that is the GT, if that makes sense. Okay. Number 23, the mouse or mice, is a sign of theft, a loss. When near, it indicates the recovery of the thing lost or stolen. If at distance, the loss will be irreparable. Irreparable, is that a word? You won't get your money back, in other words. Number 24, the heart, is a sign of joy leading to union and bliss, if nearby especially. The ring is, if on the right of the person, describes a relationship that will continue, or the chance of a relationship forming on the left, and especially if distant, it's a relationship that has ended, or a divorce, or an ex-relationship. Okay, number 26, the book indicates you're going to find out a secret. According to its position, you can judge in what manner. Great caution, however, is necessary in attempting a solution. Okay, so, I mean, to be honest with you, the most important thing is in which house the book falls. You do not want the book in the house of the heart or the ring. Yikes, obviously there are secrets. Number 27, the letter. Without the clouds means luck, which comes to you by distant favourable news. But if dark clouds are near the person, you may expect much grief. So I wouldn't necessarily say that. Again, you know, you see how reading cards and houses is much better, to be honest, because what falls in the house, the letter is going to describe what kind of news. Where the letter is and what cards it surrounds and what house it falls in is going to describe what's going on more than the distance. But again, you know, you can keep the distance in mind, you know. Okay, 28 and 29, there are no rules in the sense, well, other than if they're close by, then usually there's a pretty good relationship, unless they're touching one another, in which case it's like a duel at dawn. It's like a sword fight. The cards that intersect the two people will tell you a lot about what's happening. So in this case, we've got the scythe and the mouse. The mouse in the house of the whip, the scythe in the house of the fish. That tells you a huge amount, you know, as we're going to find out when I go through the reading. Okay, number 20. The lily indicates a happy life surrounded by clouds, a family grief. If the card is placed above the person, it indicates they're honest. If below, not so much. Could be lying. Number 31, the sun. Lying near points to happiness and pleasure or clarity or a lot of energy. As it beams, spreads light and warmth. Far away, it indicates misfortune and sorrow. As without the sun's influence, nothing can grow. Now again, that's a really dramatic statement. That very rarely manifests for me, but it is good to kind of keep in mind where are the three luminaries: the sun, the star, and the moon. The moon is a sign of great honours, fortune, and fame if the card lies at this very close to the person. If at distance, it means grief and misery. Again, I wouldn't say that at all, but it's more a case of how the reputation is, what the person's reputation is like. But again, it's the cards that surround the moon and the house that it falls in. In this case, the moon is in the house of the mountain. It's being touched by the clouds and the whip and the coffin, so there's, and the mouse, so there's a problem, as you can see, to do with this person's reputation, big time. And also the moon knights down to the mountain, you know, you see. So you'll see as I go through, I'm more a fan of cards and houses, mirroring and knighting. But I do keep in mind the near and far rules, which is why I'm just reading them quickly to you. You know, I kind of keep them in mind, but yeah, they're not the be-all and end-all for me. Number 33, the key. If near means a certain success of a wish or a plan. If distant, the opposite. The fish, if near the person, usually describes that they have control over their finances or they're doing pretty well. If far away, there's usually always a problem. Look for the cards that surround it. The anchor is a sign of a successful enterprise. It's sea, okay, of great advantage in trade, of a true love, where you drop your anchor. But if distant means a third disappointment in ideas and inconsistency in love. I would say it's more to do with the relationship between the ring, the heart, and the anchor, and the closeness of those, and how they are near or far to the two people, really. Okay, the cross, finally. The cross, if very near to the person, they have a burden, but they're dealing with it. They're not brushing it under the carpet. If it's far away, there's a problem that they're just not dealing with. So it's a good way of thinking about it. Again, you look for the cards that touch the cross, but it's more to do for me with what falls in the house of the cross. And then from there, we go, okay, well, this person's in the house of the star's in the house of the cross, goes up to the snake, and then the snake diagonally mirrors the bouquet, goes up to the rider. So you start, and then the rider goes down to the clouds. Now, what I'm going to do is read through my notes from this reading, and hopefully you'll see the story will start to make sense now. Okay, Okay, so I hope by now you realize the importance of noticing things and making observations without trying to solve the puzzle. If you can get your conscious mind out of the way and allow your subconscious mind to help you, you'll get the story a lot faster and you'll make connections without any effort. This is the power of the Leno GT, and it's why it's my go-to spread. By teaching you to ask questions such as, why do we have the mountain, the card of obstacles, right? In the house of the moon, the house of work and reputation and recognition and work. And to use Occam's razor, I'm teaching you how to use the core energy of the houses and the core energy of the cards combined with the near and far rules and the traditional playing card tableau style techniques of mirroring, knighting and chaining houses to find the story, so that you won't have to start guessing, which would be your conscious mind trying to solve the puzzle, right? Remember that back around 1820 or between 1790 and 1850, say, when this would have been a very popular divination system, people did not have easy access to books, let alone Google, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok or Facebook groups and the likes. And so they probably would have learned to read cards at home or in a local tavern. And what we now think of as the Lenormand grandtableau would have been disguised as Das Spiel der Hoffnung, which was the game of hope, one of the earliest versions of Leno. So it was a game. It was kind of disguised the same with cards, same with playing cards and tarot cards. I'm quite convinced that people bought them as an entertaining game, but actually people in the know were able to use them for different purposes. Okay. So again, I'm not going to go into a book history lesson about Leno at all, because there are plenty of other teachers who go through that. But just to kind of give you an idea, the thing that really struck me about Leno, and the GT, was when I started to think about people who probably couldn't read or write. Let's be real about this. Back around 1820, a lot of people couldn't read or write. A lot of people would have learned things by just repetition, watching someone else do it. Someone would have sat in a pub or at home and explained, well, this means this means this is what we do with this. If this is near, it means this. If this is far, it means this. And so they wouldn't have even written things down because a lot of people couldn't read, or they didn't have the money to buy fancy decks of cards. They wouldn't have the money to buy books. And so instead of having a very colourful deck of Leno cards, people would have used playing cards. They would have used handmade playing cards, hand-painted, very small playing cards, and they would have laid them out in rows and columns. And so there was a very, very simple, easy method. And that's where the near and far rules came from. So what we're talking about here is, what are the cards in the very near zone around the seeker, the dog, the bear, the stork, the fox, the heart, the sun, the cross, the key, right? Having the biggest influence. What are the cards in the near zone? We've got the letter, the ship, the fish, the mountain, the snake, the book, the tower, the star. What are the cards in the far zone? We would have the tree, the crossroads, the whip, and the coffin. And then in the very far zone, the rider, the house, the anchor, the lily, the mouse, the clover, the ring, the clouds, the moon, the bouquet, player one, and the child. So it's a very simple system of just looking at what cards are touching what other cards, first and foremost, right? Okay, now, so at the time I laid this spread, I noticed that player 2, who I was reading for, was in the house of the star, the house of plans. Here we go. And she was being touched by the fox, the card of lies, in the house of the bear. She was also being touched by the stork in the house of the coffin, the heart in the stork, and the key in the book, and the cross in the ring. I also noticed the dog in the house of the clouds. There we go. The house of general trouble. But where was the trouble? Where was the clouds coming from? Well, the clouds, I noticed, are above player one over here. In other words, he's causing the trouble. Now, I always check to see if the clouds are to the left, indicating there's been some general trouble in the past, or to the right of the seeker, indicating that they're moving into a troublesome period. In this case, they're on the left and pretty far. Clouds are 5 columns away from player 2. The labradorite crystal falling in the house of the star, the house of plans, all right? I might put a little diagram on the screen, future me in the edit. Remember to do that, just so you can get an idea of the influence of the very near zone moving out to the very far zone. The cards surrounding a card and touching it are said to be in the very near zone, okay? I've already gone through this. The one layer out is the near zone, another layer is the far zone, and everything else is in the very far zone. Now you're going to get technical, we're going to get technical later on. I'm going to show you how, and I'm going to show you how time flows left to right, but we also need to think multidimensionally so that cards can represent many things, many layers of information to tell the story, and how timing works in the GT. We've kind of talked about that a little bit, but I'm going to show you some examples with this example reading. So don't worry if you're confused now. We'll get to it and all will become crystal clear. But first, I want you to see a real life story in action, as I believe this will help you to see what is in front of you. For the longest time, I did not understand what a GT was, and all I could see were cartoons. I want to get you out of that phase as quickly as I can, because believe me, I know how frustrating it is. So the position of the clouds is telling me that there has been trouble in the past, but now things are improving in the seeker's situation. We can use the cards near the clouds to work out when this event occurred, and I'll get to that in a minute. But let's not run before we can crawl, right? So now let's talk about the ring as this, along with the clouds, tells a lot about its position. Usually if the ring is to the left of the seeker, which it is, it indicates that a relationship is over. If it's to the right, it indicates a relationship is going to continue, or a relationship will potentially form. Someone will commit to someone else. And if the person is single and ready to mingle, then it shows a relationship has a potential form. Sorry, this is what I just said. In this case, I noticed the proximity of the heart in the reading. Not only is it right beside the seeker, but it's also to the right and is being touched by the key in the house of the book, right? The house of unknown information and stuff we're about to discover. And my intuition told me that this relationship may have ended temporarily. In other words, they broke up over some argument, but they would most likely get back together. You could say that this because of the nearness of the heart to the seeker, who is falling in the house of the star, the house of plans, wishes, hopes, and aspirations. Her heart is still very much beating for player one. You can tell this because he, the amethyst crystal, is falling in her house, which tells me that all she can think about is him right now. So again, although the ring is to the left of the seeker, this relationship still has some story left in it. The book, the story, right? But with the key in the house of the book, the house of unknown information, and the house of secrets yet to be discovered, this tells me that our seeker may be in for a nasty surprise. I'm so glad I'm getting to share this very complex reading with you guys. It's perfectly demonstrate. By the way, this will potentially be a PDF for those learning Leno, so that's why it's written in the way that it is. It's a perfectly demonstrate that although I'm a very traditional GT reader, and in a sense I do not stick to the rules, Sorry, let me read that again. I'm so glad I'm getting to share this very complex reading with you guys, as it perfectly demonstrates that although I'm a very traditional GT reader in a sense, and I do stick to the rules to guide me, there are times when you bend the rules and trust your gut, when one needs to bend the rules and trust one's gut instincts. As we noticing things, you can keep a record. Think of yourself as a psychic detective. We're going to attach verbs, doing words to the cards rather than get specific. Here's an example of how my brain does this. This will show you how I think and will train your brain to make observations. Don't try to solve, just ask questions first. Why? Imagine building a house. You start with the foundations, then build the walls, then put the roof on, Then work on the interior, windows, plumbing, electric, plastering, etc. You don't put up curtains and choose wallpaper or hang pictures before you've laid the foundation, right? Getting specific too soon and thinking this means this may take you down wrong way streets, and then you'll get the dreaded no, no, no from the person you're reading for, and your confidence will be in the gutter. I don't ask questions at first when reading for someone. I make observations and simply ask myself why. I keep things simple as I move around the GT looking for clues, and this avoids the no's, and it's a really important thing. You want to try to because bear in mind, when you read for someone, especially for the first time, they don't have a clue what you're talking about. Okay, of course my alarm went off just as I was mid-sentence. So yeah, bear in mind, when you read for someone, they don't understand how Leno works. They have never read for themselves or another person. So they are not going to be used to interpreting symbols, right? So don't give people an opportunity to get confused and say no. Make your observations and just keep asking questions. That's my advice. You'll see them. You know, it's kind of one of those things where the more readings that you do, the more you learn, and you create your own style of reading cards, as with tarot, as with reading runes, playing cards, any kind of divination method. I think that what happens is you become the reader that you are meant to be. You grow into that person. And when I think about how much I've changed over the past 5 years, wow, it's just incredible. It is an amazing, amazing journey. Anyway, okay, so the clouds are always my first port of call because I want to see where the trouble is coming from and how intense it is. Using the near and far rules will help you determine this, and always pay attention to whether the clouds are on the left or the right of the seeker. So left, past, right, future. This is my simple rule and it always tells me this story. Later we'll look at specific timing and I'll teach you a technique that works really well so you can make accurate predictions every time. Now I'm just going to say very quickly what I tend to do, because I can't exactly remember what I wrote in these notes, so just in case I miss this out. I look for the bouquet as a birthday, the ship for a point of travel, and the tree for any kind of health situations. Those are my main anchor points when I'm dating a spread. So if I have the bouquet in this column, I can count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't remember what it was. We're going to find out in a minute. But say for the sake of arguments, it was 6 weeks ago. There was a significant birthday. Maybe the person's mum or dad or partner or kid or whoever it is, the person that you're reading for. If we know that there was a significant birthday 6 weeks ago, and then if we know that 2 weeks ago they went on holiday, then I have a time frame, you know. And I'm not saying, this is really important to remember. This is what I haven't heard. I haven't heard anyone else talk about this, which is why I'm making these videos for you guys. I'm not saying that that means that every column of time is 7 days. What I'm saying is that we can use the bouquet and the ship to anchor in dates and create kind of a one system using a column equals a week, right? One column equals 7 days. Now, these cards could then mean other things as well. This could have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days ago, the person had an offer or a date or something, right? Or some nice news, or maybe they went to a beautician or they had their hair done. The tree could be a new haircut if you think of the tree in the south. And then 2 days ago, maybe there was something that happened with their car. There was something wrong, fox with their car, the vehicle, the ship, you see, which is why the ship's in the house of the fox. So multi-dimensional spread. Anyway, all right, so player 2 in the house of the star. The seeker is thinking about what they want. So the star, to wish or to want. So the star is a bit like the 9 of Cups in tarot. It asks, what do you want? What it mirrors the clover, to gamble. The clover knights down to player 1. In player 2's house, through the clouds, to cause trouble. One way, and the whip to argue another, right? And to the coffin, through the whip, and then to the coffin. So the clover, knights down, so we go through the crossroads, down through the whip, down to the coffin, to end, right? So you see how we're using verbs. The coffin to end, the whip to argue, the clover to take a risk, the star to wish or to want, the garden in the house of the key, right? Why is the garden the card of other people in the house of the key, the house of answers, to be with other people? So the key thing here is that there was some connection with other people, people outside of this person's immediate family or home. Okay, and then what it chains to. The star chains to the cross, because the star is in the house of the cross, chaining houses. Why would what they want or are planning, the star to plan, be a burden? The cross to be a burden, you see? So you automatically see there's something wrong there. Right. So let's go through this GT step by step. We have the heart in the stork, in the house of the stork, in the seeker's very near zone, showing that something is changing romantically in their life. We see the stork in the coffin, in the house of the coffin, showing this change is due to an ending. Notice the ending, coffin to end, occurred in the past, as the coffin is behind the seeker, to the left, 3 columns back, and we can knight back to the clouds in the house of the garden above player 1. So this is our event, right? The clouds are indicating the event that's caused all of this. This is the main event in the story, which has brought about the perhaps temporary end of the relationship, coffin to end. Notice how the ring is directly followed by the clouds and is being touched by the mouse in the house of the whip, the card of loss in the house of conflict. Notice also that we can mirror to the heart in the house of the mouse. Notice also that we can mirror the heart to the mouse again, and we get information, cause and effect, by mirroring cards. So we have lost love. Also, we can mirror the ring to the tower to feel lonely, following due to a breakup. Notice also we can go from the clouds in the garden to the coffin, knighting to the coffin, with the coffin being described by the whip and above it, you see, and the whip being described by the ways, the house of crossroads. So we had a decision to part ways, you see, because of this conflict. Notice what I'm doing here. I'm noticing the cards that touch our seeker, the main star of the show, and that shows the drama. The fox, the card of lies, the heart, the card of love, the cross, the card of burden, the bear, the card of jealousy, and the stork. The stork is my, oh my God, what just happened kind of card. It's spill the tea, give me the gossip, what's the news, you know, what's the story in Morning Glory, it really is. Okay, I'm noticing the cards that touch player 1, the other person in the story, the other leading actor, if you like, the bouquet, the card of offers and gifts, the ring, the card of commitment, the clouds, most importantly, the card of trouble. And notice the nearness of the clouds to player 1. We have a lot of trouble. The volume is really turned up, or rather they've caused a lot of trouble, you see. This is where the near and far rules kind of bend a little bit. The moon, the card of reputation, recognition, work, but also fear and sadness. Think of the film Bitter Moon, yeah, there you go, with the lovely Emmanuel Seigner, and the child, the card of children and new beginnings. Notice also the bouquet, the card of gifts and offers, mirrors this star in the house of the cross, the house of burdens, and how the star is to the right of the seeker, and how the seeker is knighting to the tower. Seeker is knighting to the tower in the house of the letter, which mirrors back to the ring in the house of the tower, which touches player 1. What I want you to see is how, although technically time flows from left to right in our GT, so you could say that we're looking at the past, the present, and the future. Future events are described, just like nouns are described by adjectives, by the cards to the left of the seeker. So you must learn to think multidimensionally, right? So yeah, think more in terms of one card describing another, or influencing another, supporting another, to tell you the story. So we see our main story here is a breakup of a relationship. The cross in the ring shows, the cross in the house of the ring shows the burden our seeker is having to endure of short duration. So at least she's dealing with it. Her jealous bear ex-boyfriend, player 1, accusing her of cheating, the fox, right, on him with a friend, the dog in the house of the cards. They had argued 5 days previously over this, the clouds in the garden, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we know this is 5 days ago, and I confirmed that. That's what happened, right? And he had broken up with her, clouds, nights to coffin. So he was the one who did the breaking up. Now, like I said, although I noticed the ring was to the left of the seeker, player 2 in the house of the star, I felt this relationship wasn't entirely over, and sure enough, our seeker told me later that she had been in touch with her ex and had booked a hotel room online, the star, right, online, for them to have a romantic night together. The bouquet mirrors the star, the key in the house of the book to make a booking, to book a room, the tower being the hotel touched by the heart, right, the sort of love hotel. There we go. But notice the snake. The snake mirrors the star and the bouquet and the rider in the house of the rider, to be pushy. The hotel room had turned out to be a bit shabby, so her ex-boyfriend, not wanting her to pay for the room and not wanting to be controlled, had booked and paid for a better room in a different hotel where they spent the night. If you now think of the clouds as representing his confusion about the relationship, this explains why the clouds mirrors the key. See, mirrors a key. But why is the key falling in the house of the book? And why does the key knight up to the snake? Well, our seeker is now convinced that her ex-boyfriend has been cheating with another woman, or other women possibly, as he has a history of cheating. Notice how player 1 knights up to the whip, knights to the whip, you see? In the house of decisions, bad decisions, or repeated decisions. And also the whip is a card of sex. If you think of in and out, it's kind of a repetitive motion. Why is the, okay. So that is our main story, but the power of the Lenormand GT is that it also shows everything else which has been happening in the Seeker's life. Notice the ship knights back to the coffin, beside the child and the lily, the house of extended family. The Seeker's parents had just arrived, coffin to end the holiday, okay? From a holiday in Egypt, the ship touching the sun, right? And had collected her 2 children, 2 boys at night, the moon, okay? Why is the mountain in the house of the moon? Well, the Seeker's ex-boyfriend had been jealous. The bear mirrors this scythe, right, of her job at a male prison, the tower, so that she had left the job she enjoyed, the coffin, okay, and had accepted a job working at a tanning shop, the letter to the sun, okay, the letter to the sun, knights down to the sun. However, with the fox in the house of the bear, okay, and the bear mirroring the cross, is it? Oh, yeah. The cross in the house of the ring, the other side of her in this 9 card portrait. She was worried her mum would be angry with her. Why is the tower in the letter mirroring the ring in the tower? Okay, the ring in the tower. Her ex had offered bouquet to offer her to live with him in his apartment, which is why the tower, which is why the crossroads 22, the crossroads, garden, here we go, in the house of the child, is in the house of the child, the house of new beginnings. But at the time of the reading, he was giving her the silent treatment. The letter mirrors the mountain, you see? The letter mirrors the mountain, this silent treatment, like the cold shoulder. In a moment, we're going to talk about divisions of time. We can look at timing, but I want you to notice the key knights to the key, knights to the garden in the house of the key. There we go. So the main issue here is with other people. Our seeker's ex-boyfriend temporarily ended the relationship, claiming that our seeker was with another guy, the dog in the clouds, right? So we can do a mini chain of houses to see this story. Garden in key, key in book, book in dog, book in the house of the dog, right? The dog in the house of the clouds, clouds in the garden. There you go. Clouds in the house of the garden. You see a little mini chain. What I find works well for me is to do mini chains of houses combined with lots of mirroring and knighting. If you only do one chain of houses without jumping around, you'll quickly get your knickers in a twist. Trust me, I speak from experience. It's true. It sort of stops making sense very quickly, you know. You always want to do less. Less is always more when it comes to chaining houses. When I'm reading a GT, my eyes are darting around all over the place. I do try to read the whole thing. I don't try to read the whole thing, sorry. I do look for a hook into the story. I look for a hook into the story. And again, this is why I prefer not to know anything when I'm going into a GT, and I also do not specify a time period. Many readers of the GT will say they are laying a GT to look at the past, only the present, or only the future, and looking at exactly 1 month or 3 months or 6 or 9 months. This really doesn't work for me, and here's how I think of a GT. I am supposed to, so I'm supposed to deliver a message to the person I'm reading for. And usually I end up with a message from a loved one who has crossed over. So my GTs tend to be of a mediumistic nature. In other words, I connect a lot of times with loved ones who have crossed over, they're in the spirit world. That's how it manifests for me, pretty much in every single reading. So I don't go into it with a set agenda. I go with the flow and allow the GT to speak to me in whatever way it wants to. It is an organic process. Now in this reading, I noticed the coffin next to the child, and how the coffin mirrors the tree in the house of the house. This is where the GT becomes multidimensional. I believe this will blow your mind. It amazed me, which is why I wanted to write this about this amazing reading and share it with you. In terms of timing, I find the columns can represent hours, days, weeks, fortnights, months, or even 2 or 3 months, or even years, or they can represent all of the above. So on one hand, when I first noticed the position of the clouds in the reading, I counted back in days from the night I did the reading. The present moment, which when we were doing the reading, is the column the seeker falls in. So in this case, the bear, player 2, the cross, and the scythe represented Wednesday, the 19th of February 2025. So Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, Sunday, Saturday, Friday. So I knew an event had occurred on Friday night, or possibly over the weekend, as the coffin fell on Sunday technically, and sure enough they had broken up around that time. I believe on Sunday or Monday our seeker's parents had returned from their holiday in Egypt, the ship and the sun, right, and had collected the children at night, the moon. This is important if you can pinpoint an event which has happened in the past, and then you can predict when an event will happen in the future, such as the booking of a hotel room for a spot of afters, the heart, the tower, the book, right? Or the realization that one's ex-boyfriend is perhaps with another person, with another female, going up to the woman, or the snake, you see? Or player 2, the heart, the snake, the star. Yes, the snake can be a female as well as the card of deception. As I said, these 36 cards represent one's entire vocabulary. So think outside the box. It's not your average standard sort of card reading, a very general card reading. It's a real deep dive. In many cases, a tremendously deep dive, and it can be very spiritual and esoteric as well, I find, hence the mediumistic nature of a lot of my readings. When I was looking at this GT, my intuition told me to count back month by month for each column. So from where the seeker falls in the house of the star, I counted back February, January, December, and stopped at the whip. And I asked if there had been an incident around Christmas, and indeed her ex had been aggressive. She hadn't told her family. House to the clouds, right? House moving down to the clouds. As she didn't want them to worry. I also asked about the coffin and the tree, and the card of health, and it turned out she had been pregnant but had miscarried around the end of October, which explains why the child is in the house of Lily. Under the moon, the womb, right, to represent a womb, mirroring the scythe with the coffin next to them, you see, mirroring the scythe. Yeah, see how the scythe mirrors the child actually in this case, yeah. Yeah, as I said, I believe my raison d'etre is to teach you guys how to read the GT, but also act as a translator so that our loved ones can once again have a voice and let us know they are loved, that we are loved no matter what is going on in our lives. So yeah, and this has happened many times where I've had a child die or a miscarriage or something like that, and they do come through, and it's a very powerful, very moving thing to experience and to be able to help someone with. So okay, there we go. So this has been quite a long video, I know. If you have stayed with me to the end, well done, congratulations. Go and have a nice glass of wine to celebrate, or a non-alcoholic beverage of your choice. And again, if you've enjoyed the videos, please take a moment to click like, click subscribe, and just let me know your thoughts. I'm really hoping that these have been really interesting for you. I'm hoping that it gave you a completely different perspective on Lenormand, and just showed you how interesting it can be. I mean, for me, it's like rereading that from a year and a half ago. It's like watching an episode of EastEnders, you know, it's drama, full of drama. And that's what you want. That's the power of a really good reading. And believe me, the person that you're reading for will be so impressed if they've only ever had your typical kind of TikTok tarot readings, and then they have this, it's going to blow their mind. Like I said before, if you would like to have a reading of your own from me, you can contact me. My name is Zand Alexander West. Contact me through the website. I will leave the link below in the description and also above. And if you want to have a private lesson, do it over WhatsApp video chat, or Skype, or whatever you wish to use, and you can arrange that as well. So I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, sending you all love and light and positive energy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.